What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and welcome to another episode of our First Down Training show. Today, we're going to be talking about a business that generates millions and millions every single year in the youth football sector, and some things that you should look out for if you ever come across one of these type businesses, or academies, as I should say. And then we're going to be answering some questions that you guys left on a previous episode of this show, so I appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's get started. All right, so there's kind of this new thing that's been going on, especially in Southern California, where I live. I've heard of some I guess you could say academies popping up in Northern California, Texas, Vegas, sometimes in Florida as well. But that's this like holdback type academy where essentially it's a school where it was mainly designed, like there are a couple popular ones down in Southern California called Winner's Circle. There was one a little while ago. They had to rebrand, but it was called like Stars. There's another one called Real Speed, Togethership's one, and then I know there's a bunch in a bunch of different other states and cities. But essentially those schools were designed where you repeat the 8th grade year, and instead of going to like a regular public school again with guys who are maybe a year younger than you, you go to this academy where essentially it's 2 hours of like school every day, and we're going to talk about that, why I do the air quotes, and then 2 hours of like training or maybe even more every single day at their academy with coaches. So this is something that I feel is coming to every single state because it's an extremely profitable business model for the people who run these academies, and I think it's great if it's done the right way. But I just want to talk about some of the things that you should look out for if you're thinking about going to one of these academies, or maybe some information that you guys didn't even know and didn't even know that these things exist, because it's kind of crazy. I know these things weren't even a thing when I was in high school. It was, if you're going to reclass and repeat the 8th grade year, you either do online school and you do some training on the side, or maybe you repeat and you just go with the class who was like a year younger than you in school and you just hang out with those types of kids, I guess. But this is kind of new in the football world. But I've seen a lot of athletes have success, and I've seen a lot of athletes waste their time and waste their money. More specifically, parents waste their money with this type of system. So a lot of these schools will not just do the repeat of the 8th grade year. They'll have 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I've seen some schools go as low as like 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, all the way up, etc. That's really only one school down here in Southern California that does that. But it's kind of an interesting model, right? So like, I'm going to be real with you guys. I think it's highly beneficial for athletes to go to one of these academies if the academy kind of knows their role and is giving proper instruction, also proper schooling. So there's a academy out here in Corona, California, right? I don't know, many of you probably don't even know where that is, but it's down here in Southern California. It's kind of in this region called the IE, the Inland Empire, which there's a ton of football talent out there. A lot of the kids in the IE that are really talented will go to a school called Corona Centennial, which is arguably one of the best public schools in the country. They're always good every single year. They just beat Mater Dei a couple weeks ago. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of that school. So that's the type of athletes that they get out in that IE area. But a lot of people from Orange County, LA County will go to this school. Now, this school, from what I've heard with the different athletes that I train that have gone to this school, is academics is really kind of like secondary. It's like, let's call it what it is. It's a training school. You're going there to get trained for football, to get bigger, to get stronger. And some of these schools even have like position type coaches that will work on athletes individually for their skills. They'll have a lineman coach, a running back coach, a receiver, a quarterback coach, etc., right? But the problem I have with a lot of these schools is that they're not really emphasizing education, right? I know most of you guys tuning into this are either parents or athletes, and I give you guys football advice. I talk about football. I don't really talk about grades. I don't really talk about education all that often, but that is important. The more knowledge that you have, the better prepared you're going to be in society. That's the whole reason why you go to school in the first place. Do I agree with a lot of the stuff they teach in schools? No. Would I change the curriculum if I had my own school? Probably, to where you're literally, where it's more so like critical think based and you're telling people to think for themselves rather than just kind of propagandize them on certain items. But that's a different topic for a different show. But anyways, I feel like a lot of these schools, they really just don't take education seriously. So if education is a big priority for your son or a big priority for you, going to one of these schools may not be the best option for you, because chances are you might get some type of online school, which can be great. Don't get me wrong, online school, but like they're kids. Like they're already using ChatGPT to look up every single answer at the regular school. So you do it online, they're going to be cheating on every single assignment. So I get that. But these schools can benefit you in terms of strength and in terms of speed. And the reason why I only isolate those two topics is because I feel like I train so many kids that go to these schools down here in Southern California, and they come to me for quarterback and receiver training, because the quarterback and receiver coaches that these academies have are not necessarily the best guys. And I'm not saying that, I'm the best, everybody should come train with me. Like, I definitely feel that way, but I'm not going to tell you that. You could make that decision for yourself based on what we do, right? But I think a lot of these kids go to these schools and they're promised like, hey, you're going to get position specific training. We have a quarterback coach on staff, and the quarterback coach is freaking 75 years is, oh, he's telling you to hold the ball up by your ear and come straight over the top. You know what I mean? Like for that type of example. And that's kind of outdated. So the biggest advice I can give to you if you're thinking about going to one of these schools, or maybe you've been approached by one of these schools, that if you're going to pay the tuition, because it's expensive. The cheapest ones down here are about $12,000 a year. The most expensive ones are a little bit closer to $30,000 a year. And those numbers continually to get bigger every single year, because just like tuition and anything, it goes up every single year, right? So if you're going to make a substantial investment into your child, you got to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck, right? So if I'm spending that type of money and he's getting subpar education and he's getting strength training and speed training, and then he's getting subpar, you know, position specific training, it's probably not the best idea for you guys to do that. I think there are other alternatives that are better. There was a kid that I trained a couple years ago, and he repeated the 8th grade, which was a good move for him, and he's a quarterback, and he's starting on varsity as a sophomore at this school down in San Diego. And great kid, really, really smart, really, really talented. But what they did is they did like, they have quite a bit of money, if I'm being honest with you guys, but they were able to do like kind of one-on-one teaching. There was this school in like Huntington Beach where they would have a teacher work one-on-one with the student, and that's a ridiculous amount of money. I'm not saying do that, but like, let's say you did the online school route and you save yourself a ton of money, you save yourself the tuition, but then you hire on a speed coach. You put him into some type of strength training program and you give him some type of position coach where you're going to that guy or that training program 2 times a week. You go strength training 3 to 4 times. You pay like a monthly membership. You go to speed coach maybe twice a week, and then a quarterback coach or receiver coach twice a week, or whatever position you are. Over time, you're going to save yourself money by going to position coaches that you trust, that you know, strength coaches that you know are giving your kid results. Where a lot of times at these academies, they promise one thing, they'll overpromise. That's their salesman at the end of the day, because they're trying to get you to sign up and pay the tuition. They'll overpromise and then underdeliver. And I can't tell you how many people have been so upset with their experiences because that's what happened. They overpromised and underdelivered. So what I'm trying to tell you is to do your due diligence. If you are like apprehensive, you maybe are thinking about going to one of these schools, you've seen one of these schools, hey, maybe that'd be a good option for us. Make sure you vet who is running the program, their track record, and who they actually have doing what they promise to do, right? There's a school down here in Southern California. It's called the Togethership. I think they run a great program. I've never heard one negative thing said about this school. It is expensive, and it's out of a lot of people's price range, don't get me wrong. But what I do know is that they have really, really talented position coaches. And I want to say they do multiple sports. It's not just football. They'll do basketball. I want to say maybe baseball, or like girls, you know, certain girls sports like soccer. Don't quote me on that. I may be talking out of my you-know-what there, but I know for sure they have for football, right? And so they have a really great quarterback coach. They have a really great receiver coach. They go to this like strength academy that's really good. And they have teachers that are actually on staff. So they're actually like, you're in a classroom setting with maybe 7 or 8 people, and you're getting dang near like one-on-one instruction with the teacher. I think that's great. I think that's awesome. And I wish more schools would take that approach, but it's expensive to do that because you have teachers that are probably on salary. You got to pay the position coaches. You have to pay the strength coaches. You have to pay all certain things. I think they have a nutrition element of it as well, which I think is freaking awesome. It's just, you know, it's expensive. That's the more expensive route. So the best advice I could give to you as a player or a parent watching this is just make sure you're doing your due diligence. Make sure you understand and you ask these types of questions like, okay, who has gone through your program, number one? Now, here's the thing that you have to be careful of. What they will do, like there was an academy that was down here in Southern California a little while ago called Stars like Prep Academy, right? And so they got in a little bit of trouble. They had to rebrand it and call it something else because the person running the program had a charge from back in like 2004, 2005, where it was like, you know, like sexual assault on somebody on a minor, right? And he didn't end up going to jail. Nothing really ended up happening. The case got dismissed, but that's something that you probably want to know. And everybody kind of knew about it at the administration level, but kept it hush-hush, right? And then so maybe 10 years down the line, this dude gets arrested and he's actually in prison currently for like sexually assaulting and grooming a minor. It was a girl that was in attendance at the school. So it's like kind of like, okay, like I wish more parents would have known that going in, that he had this prior charge, because maybe they would make a different decision. But again, it would probably hurt their business if they're upfront about that type of thing, but maybe don't have that guy be the face of the entire program, right? So like, that's one thing that you have to look into, and that's anything. That's why so many, even when I coached for a year at high school, in high school, I had to get fingerprinted, they had to run a background check, and I was 18 years old at the time, right? So at schools, generally, most teachers have that, so you just have to be careful of that. Number one, that's one element that you have to be careful of. Number two, when it comes to your time and your money, you got to ask, like, okay, who's gone through this program? This is the reason why I talked about this specific academy where this guy got into some trouble, was that, they promoted that, oh, well, we had this, one quarterback who ended up going to him. Where did he end up going to? He went to Clemson. We had this one quarterback who went to Alabama, but all of those guys were going to that school and they were not paying tuition. So it wasn't like they were paying tuition, made the investment, went to the program, and then all of a sudden they developed into this crazy star athlete, and it was like, oh, it was all because of this program. It wasn't. Those players were already very, very good, and they offered free tuition to those players because it's kind of like a sponsorship, right? We'll give you free tuition if we could just put you on every single poster and every single banner and say that you went to our school so we could get these other people to sign up. So you have to be aware of that. I would ask, like, hey, did these people pay full tuition? How long were they in your program? Was it just a year? Are you just using them to promote your program, promote yourself, whatever the case may be? And that's the same thing for trainers. There are a lot of trainers that will give free training to certain athletes so they could say, hey, I worked with that guy a couple times. You should come train with me because I helped him get like that. So you have to be aware of those types of things. So that's one thing I would ask. Who's been through the program first? Number two, who's running the strength and conditioning? Who's running your guys' speed program? Look into that person. Who has he worked with? What are some of the drills that he does? What are some of the things that he has to emphasize? Will that help my student athlete, or will that help myself actually get better? Okay, let's say my son's a quarterback. I'm thinking about going to school. Who's your quarterback coach? It's this guy. Okay, cool. Does he have an Instagram? Let me check out his page. Is he teaching up-to-date methods that you guys know are correct, that you have been working on? Let's say you have a separate quarterback coach and you've been working with that guy for years, a separate receiver coach, you've worked with that guy for years. Are there parallels from that training that you could take to this training? Or is that athlete going to go from one style of coaching to a completely different style of coaching and try to develop all these new things in 2 years, which is a little bit unrealistic in some situations? So those are things you have to be careful of, because I know a lot of people that go to these academies and they end up with a coach that they don't like, that the stuff that they're teaching is outdated, it doesn't work, it doesn't have a history of working, and then they're kind of like, well, then they come train with me on the weekends, and it's kind of like, well, I'm telling them this, and then they're telling me, yeah, my other coach told me this. And I'm not saying that that's like, wrong in a lot of settings, because a lot of athletes want to get as much information as they can, because maybe that can help them. But just based off of my experience with athletes perform better when they understand one method of training and they go all in on that training. Now, it's on the coaches to make sure that they are doing the best up-to-date and the best work that they could possibly give that athlete. So if he does buy in, he could develop at a faster rate and at a better rate. So these academies, you guys, people you train with, where you're going to go spend your time, where you're going to go spend your money, all of that stuff matters. And you have to understand that, like, you just got to do the proper due diligence on these academies, because like they're flashy, right? They have the facilities, they have the nice weight room set up, they have maybe a little bit of turf grass outside the field, they have all these coaches on staff, whatever. It's flashy, it looks cool, but look into the details of it, because a lot of these companies make a ton of money with this, because you figure they're paying, let's say it's $30,000 tuition and they have 100 kids in their program. That's like $3 million a year, you guys. So like, that's a substantial amount of money that these places are making, right? Is all that profit? No, because they have expenses. They got to pay for the building, they got to pay staff, they got to pay employees. I get that. And whatever you charge is what you charge. It's up to you guys to determine if that's worth it, if that's worth actually paying the amount of money. But at the same time, you got to make sure that it's worth the time and worth the money. So I say this to kind of get ahead of the curve, because it's it's extremely popular in Southern California. I know that in Northern California, they're starting these schools. Somebody commented that on an episode a couple weeks ago. If you're watching this, I appreciate you letting me know about that, because I didn't know there was any in Northern California. I know Vegas has a couple, and Vegas is a football market that's starting to be on the up and up. I know Arizona has one that I know of. I know Texas has a couple different ones as well. So I think it's coming, and I think it's going to be something that's going to be in all these different states, because it's a profitable business model. And if it's a profitable business model, it's definitely going to grow. So I tell you this so you guys can get ahead of the problem. It's great. great. I think it's a fantastic idea, especially for athletes who reclass, who want to develop an extra year, or for athletes who are just like, hey, maybe, you know, we really want to play football, we're taking it serious. Maybe school at the place is great, or maybe school isn't the most important thing for you. That's up to you to decide if that's worth it for you. But I want to get ahead of the curve. I want to make sure that if you guys get approached by one of these places, you see one of these places, you know all this information going in, because California is a couple years ahead of the curve. I've seen a lot of stuff, and that's why I want to get this across to you guys. So fellas, that's all I'm going to say about that. Now, guys, before we get into some questions that you guys left on a previous episode of the show, and again, you know the deal. Every single comment that you guys leave on our YouTube channel, I respond to and answer. So guys, if you have questions, post those in the comment section below, and the best questions I feature on the next episode of our show. So guys, do not hesitate. Post those questions in the comment section below. I'll make sure to get back to you. But before we get into your questions, guys, if you're a QB or wide receiver watching this and you would like to train with myself and my staff of coaches this offseason, we are traveling out to 15 different cities across the entire country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So guys, if you want some information, want to sign up, go to that very first link in the description below. That's where you can get all the information, you guys. At our camps, we're not one of these camps that's like, hey, let's get 300 people out there and just, you know, have everybody go through, get as many reps as possible. No, like, we slow things down. We work with you one-on-one, individually. You screw up, like you guys have probably seen clips of me posting this on our YouTube shorts, or I'm working with an athlete. That's exactly how we coach every single athlete. We slow it down. Hey, you need to do this. You need to do that. Next rep, we try to apply it. We take things slow, and you can't do that style of coaching if you have a million people out there. So we limit spots, you guys. So we have available spots, but spots are filling up very, very quick this year. So make sure you take advantage of that. Very first link in that description below. Our next camp is going to be in San Francisco, California. Then we'll go to Orlando, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, Columbia, South Carolina, Seattle, Washington, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Then we'll be heading out to Nashville, Tennessee, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Denver, Colorado, Columbus, Ohio, Boston, Massachusetts, Salt Lake City, Utah, and finishing it off in Los Angeles, California, close to home. So guys, make sure you take advantage of the fact that we have open spots. Very first link in that description below. Let's get back to this video. So let's do some questions. So I appreciate you guys asking all these questions. Everybody who watches these long form stuff, we really enjoy doing these longer form things, because, like, you know, a lot of times with the short form clips, you know, we get 60 seconds to deliver a message to you guys, right? And so, like, sometimes that can be difficult, but when we do these longer form episodes and you guys tune in consistently, we really appreciate it, and we really enjoy, you know, interacting with you guys. So that's why we do this Q&A at the end. So question number 1 from Buck LL Droa 11. Coach, you should talk about fights in high school football. Recently, 2 teams in my high school plays this year. Wequahic High School and Westside High School, both in Newark, New Jersey. They both got into a huge fight that led to both teams being DQ'd from football. Yeah, I mean, a tale as old as time, right? In youth football, high school football, there's always going to be fights, and I think it's bad for the game. You know, to be honest with you, you know, whether that's players going at it, coaches going at it, I think at the end of the day, what you have to prioritize is just the athletes, right? I think a lot of times whenever fights break out in youth football and high school football, it's all about ego from adults. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes players can get chippy, but it's on the adults to make sure you reel your players in. So I think parents, you know, my son's the greatest, my son's the greatest, somebody disrespects this person's son, they're going at the other parent, and then that's when a fight breaks out, right? It's all ego, and it's all very, very selfish in my opinion. It's not about you, it's about the kids, right? So at the end of the day, we're trying to develop these young men to get them ready to go out into the world, not even necessarily move on to the next phase of football, whether that's high school to college or youth to high school. That is important when it comes to development, but we're trying to teach them how to be, you know, good young men in the world, right? So I think you see a lot of things in the football world, like domestic violence with college athletes. You see a lot of athletes, you know, like, again, that running back for the Browns who got in trouble for that type of thing. It's like, and it's just, you're making it seem like you're putting these athletes in an environment when they're young and impressionable that, like, hey, fighting's okay. And especially if you're in a bad area, like, you are constantly surrounded by that type of stuff. And you want football to be an escape from that. You want football to be the way out for a lot of these kids. And if you're normalizing that, whether you're a coach or a parent, you're doing something wrong. I'm not going to tell you how to parent your kid, but you need to make sure that fighting is not their instinct, where it's like, hey, something doesn't go your way, you're not fighting. Because what's going to happen in the real world when something doesn't go your way? And that's how a lot of people may end up in jail or get some serious consequences. So I hope that ends, but that's all I'm going to say about that. I appreciate you asking that question, man. Next question from Mr. Shrugs. Hey, coach, I'm a freshman wide receiver, 5'6", 130 pounds, but I'm having trouble catching the ball. While there's coverage on me, even if I'm opening, I'm kind of focused on the DB instead of the ball for some reason. Any tips? So yeah, if you're catching in traffic, most important thing is your eyes. Obviously, you got to key in on the ball. I tell receivers all the time, focus on the white stripe of the ball and see it make contact with your hands. Now, when you're in traffic, somebody's grabbing on you, somebody's coming down to make a hit, you can't hold the the ball away from yourself for too long, so if you get popped or somebody hits it, it's going to come out. So when you're catching in traffic, eyes see it to the catch, and then you want to be violent to the tuck. And if you can be violent to the tuck, that'll help you absorb that contact and still be able to hang on to the ball. So hope that answers your question, man. I appreciate you asking that. Next question here from Taj Journey 7778. I've already had a guy tell me he wants to help my 11-year-old get offers because he sees something in him. I pretty much told the guy to kick the nearest rock. I'm glad I can feel relief that I didn't burn a bridge. Yeah, anybody that's claiming that they could get an athlete who's under the age of 14 offers, college exposure, is probably just trying to take your money at the end of the day. Like, your kid may have potential, don't get me wrong, and that's fantastic, but like, you need varsity film. And a lot of times you see these kids, like, it's not the kids, it's their parents, but they're like, oh, my 13-year-old has this D1 offer, blessed to announce I got this offer. Like, no, you didn't, bro. It's verbal, number one. It's probably an assistant coach who said something in passing. It could be paid for. A lot of people do that. They'll give coaches cash under the table to give a kid an offer in hopes that other coaches see that. Maybe they start recruiting him. It's all BS. Nobody can get you a legitimate offer under the age of like a sophomore in high school. Like, to be honest with you, even freshmen who have these offers, a lot of the times BS. Early recruiting is a thing, but at that young, it's actually not common. It's not real. It's not a real thing. A lot of people do it just for hype, just to get looks, just to get views on social media. So anybody that claims that, trying to take your money, stay away from those types of people. I promise you, you will be fine. And if you're a good enough college football, or if you're a good enough high school player to get an offer in college, coaches will find you, especially if you're in a small area and you do the proper promotion of yourself on social media with no help of these like street agents, you'll be totally fine. Okay, so I appreciate you saying that, man. Thanks for tuning in. So guys, that does it for this episode. But seriously, if you have questions, want to be featured on our next episode, do not hesitate. Leave your questions in the comment section below. We love interacting with you guys, and we'll see you guys next time.